ever Sankalp Africa Summit. We're excited, humbled, and inspired that so many of you have made time to be here with us today. My name is Deepika Prasad, and I work with Intellicap's consulting team. I will be hosting this afternoon's proceedings with my colleague.
Hi everyone, I'm Akiana Onjarika and I am a volunteer with Sankalp Africa. Welcome to Kenya, and I would like to now invite you to all stand up so that we can play the Kenyan national anthem. Thank you. You may now sit down.
It's a real pleasure for both of us to be here with all of you today. As you might have already heard, our convening has been sold out, and we have over 450 people here today from 25 different countries. And together, they represent the cutting edge of an industry that believes that market-based approaches can create social and environmental change. To officially open this conference and to get things rolling, I would like to invite Intellicap's CEO, Anurag Agarwal, to give a welcome address and to speak a bit more about Intellicap, Sankalp, and why we're all here today.
Anurag has been working in the inclusive development space for over a decade and was part of Intellicap's founding team. He set up and built the investment banking practice, whose focus is assisting early and growth stage multiple bottom-line enterprises to raise capital. He has played a key role in setting up iCubeN, India's first impact-focused angel network for seed-stage investment, and he was also part of the pioneering team that conceptualized and executed franchising of microfinance across India. He has worked with several social-oriented investors in identifying suitable impact investment opportunities and has facilitated investment transactions. Over to you, Anurag.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's my immense pleasure to welcome all of you to the inaugural Sankalp Africa Summit. Sankalp Africa is an effort to replicate a platform that we had created in India. It's a mutual collaboration and learning platform. And what we are trying to do is to replicate the same platform that we launched in India 6 years ago. It has taken us quite a while to get here from the time this thought first occurred to us about 2 years ago. Some of the people that we had those initial discussions with are present in the room here, so we'll relate to that. Now that we are finally here, I feel we're on the verge of something really special, something that all of us can look back upon and say, this is where all of this started. So without taking too much of your time, because we have quite a packed agenda through the day, let me tell you a little bit about Intellicap and the philosophy behind Intellicap and why we are here and what are we trying to do here through Sankalp in Africa. So Intellicap stands for intellectual capital. We are all about youth and entrepreneurship and harnessing the power of youth and entrepreneurship to tackle some of the most complex problems in the world. We started on this journey 12 years ago with nothing but optimism, enthusiasm, and sheer willpower, something that I believe all the entrepreneurs in this room will relate to and would have in abundance as well. We had nothing to lose, really. So when we started out, we had no money. We started with 1 lakh rupee of Indian capital, which would be roughly about 150, 160,000 Kenyan shillings. No experience. Our team was a bunch of 20 people in their 20s. So no experience, no past baggage, which allowed us to look at things from a fresh perspective. We realized that the only way to make a meaningful difference is by finding solutions that are both scalable and those solutions that are also sustainable. And therefore, that's precisely the reason why we chose to take a market-based approach to development and work with entrepreneurs who can lead the way. So everything that we do in Telecap is based and centered around an entrepreneur, and how do we make that entrepreneur successful. We looked at what are the gaps in the market ecosystem and tried to come up with solutions that would fill those gaps. In the process, we ended up creating an entire ecosystem of our own. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And the whole ecosystem that we created in India, that's what we are trying to replicate here in Africa. So over the last 12 years, we've grown to a group of over 600 people running multiple business lines, all focused on addressing core issues at the base of the economic pyramid. Our core businesses are consulting and investment banking. Both these businesses were started with people who had no prior experience of running a consulting or investment banking business. Over the years, our team has completed over 100 inclusive business engagements across 20 countries. We've raised over USD $250 million of capital for small and growing businesses, working with the BOP populations. Our ecosystem approach to catalyzing social innovations in India has driven us to launch critical market building initiatives. Some of these include Sankalp, that you are all part of now, IQBen, which is India's first impact-focused angel network, and IntelliGrow, a pioneer in providing venture debt services in India to, again, SMEs who cannot access loans from banks. We've also, as part of our group, we also have a microfinance company which serves over 200,000 low-income households in 3 of the poorest states in India. Along the way, we've also made a lot of mistakes. We've also had a lot of failures. The list of these failures are far longer than some of the successes that I just spoke about. But like many of the entrepreneurs here, we've learned from these failures and bounced back to emerge even stronger. I would at this point like to, call out some of my colleagues who've, played a part in this journey and, have been resilient through the process and built this institution over this period. Firstly, Aprajita, who happened to be the very first member of Team Intellicap. Aprajita, if you're there, and she's probably out to receive the Indian High Commissioner, so not here. And she leads the Sankalp team that has brought this forum here. Atreya, who started the investment banking business with me, also part of our founding team, and currently heads our investment banking business. Nisha, who moved from Silicon Valley to head up our consulting business, which is right now the largest team. Nisha, if you could just say hello to the crowd here. Sanjeev, who used to work very closely with me as the CFO of Intellicap, now is the CEO of our venture debt company, IntelliGrow. And Vineet, who's our founder and chairman and the driving force behind all of this that's happening here. I would also like to specifically call out my colleagues, Deepika, who you just saw on the stage, Kanika and Sehul from the Sankalp team, who are primarily responsible for bringing Sankalp Forum to Africa. Just, all the 3 of them are in their mid-20s. So, this is just another prime example of how, the fearlessness of youth is leading the way into uncharted territories. And this pretty much defines the essence and DNA of Intellicap. So, what are we trying to do here in Africa, and, what does Sankalp stand for? Sankalp is a Hindi word which means pledge. It is nothing but a call to action. Through Sankalp, we aim to drive an outcome-oriented engagement that will shape the global discourse on inclusive development. We are launching here in Sankalp here in Africa because we believe there isn't any market more exciting than in the world today. We see a tremendous opportunity to learn from Africa's leadership in inclusive development space. We've experienced firsthand a strong yearning for change. We have also witnessed talent, creativity, hard work, discipline, and dedication on part of youth and business that we have interacted with on the ground here. Africans are not merely clamoring for change. They have been working on it and making it happen. This is no different from what we've been experiencing in India, and this is what encourages us to, move ahead with our plans in Africa. And Sankalp Africa Forum is just the first step in this direction. In a nutshell, we are here to learn from all of you, to share the learning from our own trials and tribulations back home, and above all, to see how we can work together to create a more enabling environment for all the entrepreneurs present here, and to drive systemic change in the world around us. I would want to conclude by, thanking some of the partners and individuals that have worked with us over the last 6 months that we've been working on this initiative. We've been overwhelmed with the kind of support that we've received on the ground from so many of you. I would especially like to call out some of our key people who've helped us, who've given us their time, advised us on design and implementation, and opened doors for us. Firstly, our founding partners, Shell Foundation and DFID, for backing Sankalp, when it was nothing more than a paper plan. We have Chris West here, right in the first row, who sort of supported us when we first came with the idea of launching Sankalp here in Africa. I think somewhere at the back, we also probably have Richard Gomes from Shell. We don't have Simon and Pradeep here, who also played a very, very key role in supporting us through this process. From the DFID team, we have Lisa Phillips, who heads the Kenya DFID operations, and we have Seema, who's part of the India team, who's been working very closely with us to launch Sankalp here in Africa. So thank you for that. I'd also like to thank our partners who are supporting the Sankalp SMEs, including the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves, BizCorps, Investec Capital, Growth Africa, and Mara Foundation. Outreach partners, Andy, Jin, Amani Institute, VC for Africa, and Next Billion for helping to get the word out and engaging their networks in Sankalp Africa. There are many individuals as well who've helped us along this journey. I would not be able to name all of them, but I want to specifically call out 3 people here who are present here. Firstly, I would like to thank Anil Sinha from IFC South Asia. He leads the inclusive business group there, who's pushed us to think about expanding to Africa. The whole thought process of replicating Sankalp in Africa, started with a meeting in his office in Delhi a few years ago. Emmy Essian of Rockefeller Foundation, who was one of the first people we met in Nairobi and who opened many more doors for us. Lillian Mareria of Enablers, who spent many countless hours over Skype brainstorming and guiding the development of our plans. On behalf of the IntelliCap team, I want to thank all of you for helping us put the Sankalp Africa Summit together. We have a couple of days of action-packed agenda during the summit. Some of the actions already started even before this opening, and we've been working very closely with the entrepreneurs who are now going to pitch in front of you. So that's my favorite part of the summit. We also have with us the Indian High Commissioner here, who would now address you. So thank you for your patience and look forward to your active engagement during the Sankalp Summit and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anurag. After that great opening piece, we're now moving on to an address from a very special guest that Deepika will tell you more about.
Thanks, McKenna. We're honored to have with us here today the Indian High Commissioner to Kenya, His Excellency Shri Sibabrata Tripathi. High Commissioner Tripathi has served in the Indian diplomatic missions in Cairo, Abu Dhabi, Seoul, Helsinki, and Colombo before being appointed as ambassador to the Republic of Madagascar and the Union of Comoros in 2002. He was then appointed High Commissioner to Uganda and also accredited as ambassador to Rwanda and Burundi. Before his appointment as the High Commissioner of India to the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Tripathi was Joint Secretary, West Asia and North Africa Division in the Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi. High Commissioner Tripathi is also accredited as India's ambassador to Somalia and is India's permanent representative to the United Nations Environment Programme and to the United Nations Human Settlements Programme. High Commissioner Tripathi was educated at Stuart School, Bhubaneswar in India and obtained BA and MA degrees in history from St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi. Before entering the Indian Foreign Service in 1979, he was a lecturer in history in the Delhi University. He's also studied Arabic from the American University in Cairo in the early years of his career. Welcome, sir, and we're very glad to have you with us here today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. And fortuitously for me, we are between lunch and dinner, so I shan't sing for either meal. Mr. Agarwal, whom I've just met, Mr. Rai, Mr. Phillips, Ms. Phillips, Mr. West, Mr. Sinha, Mr. Koinange, who I do not quite see, entrepreneurs, African and non-African, ladies and gentlemen. That's the first time I've heard my name pronounced correctly, even by my son. I thank you very much for taking the trouble to pronounce that name. I'm obviously very delighted to be here with you for a brief part of this afternoon's session of this two-day Africa Summit being convened through the efforts of the Sankalp Forum and their partners with its theme of inclusive development. I do feel the interloper here. I'm not directly a development practitioner, yet as the High Commissioner for India, I do see my role and that of my mission here in Kenya, or as she introduced me, Somalia and Eritrea too, to which I'm accredited, as a facilitator of development, one of numerous cross-national enabling factors and personalities, individuals, in this global melting pot of economic growth, of which entrepreneurship is such an important factor. As one of Kenya's key partners, the imprint of India and Indian entrepreneurship is visible throughout this great continent. East Africa perhaps exemplifies this as well as any other region, the good that has come of this relationship. Long before it became fashionable, and not just fashionable but also necessary, to describe Africa as the next growth pole for our world, Indians were trading with the Swahili coast. More recently, particularly over the last 100 years, Indian entrepreneurship was a direct engine for the development of trading and later manufacturing. First through family-centric small enterprises, and later through larger investments. There are many examples that I could cite from Kenya's industrial history, and a serious economic historian could well compile a useful manual on business development models, successful and, if you've been to Eldoret, not so successful from such case studies. The East African textile and sugar industries are but two cases in point, as there are many other examples from the financial and retail sectors. Such developments, together with the Indian contribution to African education and technical skill development, have been important factors contributing to this learning process. Switching, if I may, to more contemporary examples, let me take you through certain nodes, if you will. In 2013, that's last year, figures for which have just come to my hand, India remained the largest exporter to Kenya. The figure was exactly 3 billion, or slightly less. Included in this, again, as but one example, is machinery of various sorts, which in turn help impart skills to Kenyans. The Government of India awards over 150 scholarships, fully paid, annually to Kenyans for technical as well as more conventional degree-oriented education, from the undergraduate to the doctoral levels. I shall be excused from citing an Indian firm's reported impending contribution to the Kenyan IT education at the primary level. That was in the news yesterday, day before. India is a preferred destination for a variety of Kenyan benchmarking studies. Indian business presence and investment in Kenya is an important facet of this relationship that I'm speaking about. There are nearly 50 branded Indian firms with offices in Kenya, strung along from JKIA as you get into Nairobi, right into the heart of town. I shan't name names. You've seen them on the billboards. Investment ventures cover the whole range of activities: manufacturing, extractives, infrastructure development and consultancy, banking and insurance, hotel and tourism management, distribution and retail. All of these activities add value locally and transfer and develop local skills and entrepreneurship. Tomorrow, I'm informed, the Honorable Cabinet Secretary for Industrialization and Enterprise Development, Mr. Adan Abdullah Muhammad, will be your keynote speaker. Some 3 months ago, the Cabinet Secretary and I shared a platform along with the regional representative of the African Development Bank to launch a study by the AFDB on the state of Kenya's private sector. That is what it was called. I was there because the study was financed from the India-Africa Economic Trust Fund, which is a corpus contributed by the Government of India and managed by the AFDB for projects and plans that it chooses to finance. Without necessarily agreeing with the assumptions of this study or endorsing its conclusions, I would yet commend this study. It's available on the internet for your consideration. I believe you will find it useful in understanding areas such as the link between the important Kenyan informal sector that some call with pride, some disparagingly as the Juakali sector, but its counterpart in India has been the driving force for teaching millions of Indians machining skills, milling skills, operating and even building lathes. Today, Kenyan entrepreneurs, small and large, stand on their own, fully capable of every facet of economic decision making. The time to talk down to them is long over. Mindful as we are of this, we believe that sharing our experiences with friends in Africa is India's key USP. I'm sure your deliberations will form an important contribution too in this vein. I thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now call upon Anurag and Vineet to give a small token of our appreciation to Shri Tripathi.
Walk fast.